And Nancy Cordes joins us now from Capitol Hill. Nancy, Republicans obviously have the numbers, so they can repeal the Affordable Care Act. So what is President Obama's goal today?
His goal is to urge Democrats to get as aggressive as possible, if not legislatively, then at least in the court of public opinion, to speak often, to speak passionately about the benefits of the health care law, and to try to pin the blame for possible loss of insurance for millions of Americans on Republicans now. Democrats fervently believe that if Republicans mess with the health care law and millions of people do end up losing their coverage, that people will end up blaming Republicans. And so they are trying to cement that message. But as you point out, beyond that, there's very little they can do. They just don't have the numbers in the House and the Senate. They acknowledge that. They acknowledge that if Republicans want to repeal this law, and they have said that's their number one priority, that it's really a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, and the Republicans took that initial step to repeal the law yesterday, a procedural step, really. Have we gotten any indication, though, as far as a timeline if this is repealed?
So this resolution that you just mentioned would be voted on in the Senate and then the House next week. And what it essentially does is it allows Republicans to use the budget process to speed up the repeal of large chunks of the law. And so once this resolution passes, as we expect it will, then they go about in their various applicable committees working on that repeal, and then there could be a full vote in the House and Senate within the next month or two. The big questions are, number one, what do Republicans put in place as kind of a stopgap or a grace period while they're working on coming up with some kind of replacement for Obamacare? So, for instance, do they say that there will be a 2-year grace period for anyone who is currently getting their insurance through the health care law? And then beyond that, how quickly can they begin to work on a replacement, and can they come to any kind of consensus on what that replacement should look like? Because there are some Republicans who say, look, some parts of this law we really like. We like the fact that insurance companies are required to cover people with pre-existing conditions. We like the fact that parents can keep their children on their health care plans even when they are young adults. But there are other Republicans who say the government needs to get out of the insurance business altogether. They should not be putting restrictions on these insurance companies. And that's going to be the big fight over the next couple of years around here, Dana, not necessarily between Democrats and Republicans, but between Republicans and their Republican colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, you raised those questions. I was going to say, do we have any indication as to how they solve this problem and what they do? But again, it seems that there are just some ideas, but no concrete solutions right now.
Right, and to give you a sense of how difficult it is to come up with an alternative, Republicans have had 6 years since this law went into place to present that alternative. They always promised that they would. They always said that it was right around the corner, that they were going to show a path to a better way, and it has never happened because the universe of options here are really very limited. And what Democrats would argue is that the reason that Republicans can't come up with a conservative alternative to Obamacare is because they already have the conservative alternative. They say Obamacare is actually much more conservative than what a lot of Democrats would have liked. A lot of Democrats would have favored a simple single-payer system where you put the government in charge of insuring the public. Obviously, they knew that was not going to fly with a lot of moderate Democrats and obviously with Republicans. So they left the insurance industry intact and just place some new requirements on the industry and also on Americans to buy insurance. So they say, good luck trying to find alternatives to Obamacare that are more conservative than the current approach. They argue that conservative way just doesn't exist.
Yeah, a busy one day already now that things are back in action. House Republicans yesterday, you mentioned this in the piece, so they scrapped plans to gut the Independent Ethics Office. This was less than 24 hours after they voted to enact that. Have we gotten any indication as to what was more important, whether it was a tweet from President-elect Trump or whether it was just an outcry of disapproval from the public?
I think it was both, but the Trump tweet was certainly the final straw. Republican leaders were already very concerned about the beating that they were taking in the press, with conservative groups, with liberal groups. They were worried that it was sending the absolute wrong message about their priorities in the 115th Congress. And for a change, a tweet from Donald Trump was sort of a gift to them rather than a hindrance. They quickly called an emergency meeting after he sent a little while after he sent that tweet, and this time House Republicans who had voted for this resolution the night before and who aren't want to change their minds on things like this, especially not within the span of 24 hours, saw that the president-elect himself was not on their side, and all got into that meeting and said, okay, you're right, this was not necessarily the right time to take a step like this, maybe not necessarily the right way to reform the Office of Congressional Ethics, which, by the way, lawmakers on both sides believe needs to be changed. And so they relented. But obviously, it left a stain on the first day of the 115th Congress when Republicans are trying to show that in a new Washington, where they control not just the House, not just the Senate, but also very soon the White House, that they know what they're doing and they've got a clear path forward. So they're trying to regroup after that unforced error. And
gave us plenty to talk about with it. Nancy Cordes, thank you for the very latest there from Capitol Hill. We know you are awaiting the arrival of the president and also the vice president-elect, and we will keep people here updated once they do make their way to the Hill. Thanks, Nancy.
You got it.